A few weeks ago, I reviewed Project Warlock 2, a game that I found to be fun yet disappointing at the same time. It was slightly buggy, enough for me to get soft-locked in the second episode, resulting in me rage quitting and uninstalling before completing it. So this week, I'm moving on to a sequel that had been released recently for another first-person shooter I really enjoyed, Forgive Me Father. I think I might actually prefer FMF over Project Warlock, and FMF2 keeps that same look and feel instead of trying to mimic a completely different game style. And I can say that I enjoyed FMF2 to the point that I was able to finish it. But is it better than the original? Well, let's talk about it. Forgive Me Father 2 plays as a direct sequel to the original game. In fact, it starts off immediately after the events that occurred after the final boss. The game resumes the story of the priest, as he's kept in an unknown asylum. I should mention that unlike the original game, where you had the choice between two characters, here you only play as the priest, with only very minimal references to the female journalist. Anyway, the priest starts roaming the hospital to find things have again begun spiraling downwards, with the staff being horrific mutations of their former selves. You'll start off with a knife, and soon find a revolver and shotgun to defend yourself against the creatures out to take your life. You'll notice right away that the game has an identical visual style to its predecessor. Everything is drawn in a dark comic style, and just like before, it still fits perfectly. The world feels gritty, enemies explode in splatters of crimson, and new to the sequel, they will also gab apart. This means that you'll see less intact corpses and more blood and destroyed body parts. The game's core mechanics are also very similar. Go through stages, find keys, open doors, blast inhuman creatures, and survive to the end of the level. One thing that has been changed is the flashlight, and I can't say that I really like the way it was altered. In the original game, it was kind of annoying because you had to hold the right mouse button to bring up a lantern, and you couldn't hold both the light and a weapon at the same time, meaning that enemies would always be attacked in semi-darkness. In the second game, you find a light that has to be wound up with a chain. Once this is done, the light will slowly lose its charge, and you'll have to hold the button down to keep the battery powered. If you've ever played any of the Metro games, you'll understand how it works since it's the same premise. You'll get used to it, but having to constantly worry about the flashlight charge can get bothersome. Even though the combat is nearly identical, I found this game to be much more difficult than its predecessor. Enemies seem to do much more damage to you, and power-ups, including health, armor, and ammo, appear to be a bit more constrained. You'll be swapping weapons constantly because of the ammunition reserves running low. For the most part, though, enemies are still squishy and die quickly, with the exception of the slightly more powerful creatures. And on that front, many enemies return from the original Forgive Me Father. Oddly enough, the enemy health meters have been removed, so you won't know how close your opposition is to death. But again, since most enemies die within 1 or 2 shotgun blasts, it's not that big of a deal. Speaking of weapons, there's a strange downgrade in firearm variety. The original game had an amazing variety of weapons, with many of them getting 2 different upgrade paths depending on how you allocated your stat points. And there were about 8 or 9 different weapons to choose from, all with their uses. Here, you get 6 weapons, and that's it. Melee, pistol, shotgun, automatic weapon, launcher, and as the game calls it, exotic. Granted, each of these weapons has 3 different ways to modify it, done in the Asylum hub between each stage, utilizing upgrade points found in the stages. Many of these modifications actually feel like a downgrade, however. Changing the revolver to a more modern magazine-fed pistol allows for quicker reloads and more rounds fired before needing to reload, but the lack of power can be stifling. Same goes with the automatic shotgun. The power decrease is definitely noticeable. Of course, upgrading the rifle to the minigun is awesome, although there is a slight windup that needs to be done before lead is flung downrange, and yes, you will run out of bullets quickly this way. But when you are overcome in a small room, this thing does tend to make things a bit more manageable. I will admit that the exotic weapons are all fairly useful crowd clearing tools as well, but once you find a modification you like, you probably won't change it much. At least purchasing the upgrade is permanent, and upgrade points don't need to be spent each time you wish to alter them. In addition to the weapon modifications, you will also be able to equip perk cards. There are 2 types, passive and active effects. You can only equip a total of 3, which kinda sucks, as many of these cards are very useful. Ammo reserve increases, a longer lasting flashlight, More health boosts, longer lasting tome abilities, more powerful weapons. They all have their uses. Before you can equip them, you must unlock the card, done by spending, I'm guessing, what are called madness points. I have no idea how to actually earn these points, but every time I went to the hub, I had more. Maybe it's by killing enemies, maybe it's by finding and destroying the hidden clock collectibles. I don't know. Either way, once a card is purchased, you can equip it in the asylum. As for the activated abilities, these are done by pressing a single key while in a stage. Unlike the original game, the perks you can use are only chosen by these cards, and will all be used at the same time. However, just like the original game, their use is charged by killing enemies. The meter on the bottom of the screen denotes how many uses you have, up to 4. Personally, I found more use with the passive cards, so I didn't use the tome much, but I can't deny that there aren't a lot of good abilities, such as increased firing rates. With that said, there is no more skill tree. I'm a bit disappointed with that aspect. Forgive Me Father 1 had a pretty substantial skill tree that let you slowly get more powerful as the game progressed. Here, it's just cards and weapon mods, with minimal ways to increase your health, armor, and ammunition limits without the cards, which uses up a valuable card slot. By the way, I did forget to mention something. Why did we go from not needing to reload to requiring it? I like how in the first game you just spray metal and watch things die without needing to slap a new clip into your weapon. Here, reloading is required, which kinda sucks. In a boomer shooter such as this, I feel like reloading can be detrimental, especially when using something like the shotgun, which reloads fairly slowly. It kills the momentum of the game. I get it, you play as a priest, but at this point he kinda knows his way around a firearm. Plus, there's a bit of a story in which you return to a battlefield from a bygone era, where you find out he used to be a soldier, so he does know weapons. Yeah, well. Also, there's now fall damage. Ugh. Anyway, let's talk about the stages. There is a fair amount of variety here, and other than the aforementioned battlefield, I enjoyed them all. Starting in the asylum is a great throwback to the end of the first game, but then you move on to the city streets, slaying demented villagers, a fish cannery, the priest's mansion home, a desert temple, and a massive indoor garden also await you. It's one of the best driving parts of the game, waiting to see where you're going to be walking through next. So my commendations to the developers for still keeping the world engaging and fun to explore. But one minor complaint. I think we went a little bit overboard on the desert temple. The level itself is a massive maze, but to compound things, you have to find about 25 switches to open up the way to the end of the stage. Most of the switches are easy enough to find, but I spent probably a good 45 minutes looking for the one switch that I was missing. Before playing the game, I read a review on Steam in which a user voiced their frustration with this, and I thought to myself, man, how bad could this really be? It's a boomer shooter. Well, after playing it, I do have to agree with the reviewer. But don't get discouraged, as the game's fun picks right back up after this annoying level is completed. Plus, if there had been a multiplayer deathmatch option, this temple level would have been freaking awesome. It gave me heavy GoldenEye vibes. For as difficult as the game can get, the bosses are kinda pushovers. I was able to defeat most of them without even breaking a sweat. However, the second boss attempts something different. Remember the turbo tunnels from Battletoads? Imagine if these got converted to a first-person view, and you'll get how this battle works. I actually loved this, as it was so unexpected. Unfortunately, there aren't really any other gimmicks with the bosses, but that's fine, I guess. The only thing left to mention is the music. And it's awesome. You get the typical ambient stuff when just exploring the stages, but once the battles start, the guitars do too. Right from the start, at the title screen, I was jamming out to the theme, and I had hoped that this was a good indication of how the remainder of the game was going to go. It was a good indication, I can tell you that. The music is just as driving as before, and the adrenaline will kick in. When I first started Forgive Me Father 2, I wasn't so sure that I was liking it more than the original game. Something wasn't clicking with me, and I think it might have been the slightly slower pace, reloads, fall damage, lack of power-ups, and overall higher difficulty. But the more I played, the more I got over that hurdle to find that yes, I truly enjoyed this one. The varied level layouts, beautifully dark comic-like graphics, and amazing metal music really kept me going. No, I still don't think it quite matches up to its older brother, but I think it did much better at being a sequel than Project Warlock 2 did to its original. I mean hell, even Forgive Me Father 2 had a return to Asylum option, even though I never needed it. There's also a Mario reference of all things, with a piranha plant portrait found at times. It's a shame that it only took me about 6 hours to complete the game, but it is what it is. If you enjoyed the original Forgive Me Father, or the boomer shooter genre in general, this is a game that you should have in your library. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.